Metro Boomin is one of the most influential producers out there. He has literally been involved in shaping out the sound of the modern trap music we can hear today. And with his sound, he has worked for some of the best artists in the industry. You have people such as Drake, Travis Scott, Future, and also famously 21 Savage. Although he has worked with different type of artists, his sound is pretty recognizable. You would usually hear some pretty dark melodies with some heavy basses in the background, and it's layered with some pretty simple but yet bouncy drum patterns. So today I'm going to show you guys how you can pretty much recreate the sound of Metro Boomin inside your music production program. So let's not waste any more time, let's just get straight to it. Alright, so we are here in FL Studio 21, as you guys can see. To start off with, we want to focus a little bit on sound selection. So when it comes to Metro Boomin's sound, you would usually hear some pianos, bells, or some dark strings. He usually puts these instruments in a very dark pattern that kind of creates this tension in between the sound. So in this case, we're just going to start off by using this Noir pure piano in contact, and we're going to bump the BPM up to about 155. As for the scale we're working in, it's going to be D sharp minor. The scale doesn't really matter too much since you can obviously pitch around with the scale later, but I like going for something in between B minor and D sharp minor. This is just because we can keep the root note pretty low, so we can really get that dark vibe when it comes to the drums later on as well. Now to start off with, we're just going to make a normal D sharp minor chord. As you can see, it's super simple. We're just going to stretch this out to these two bars over here. Now we are going to do something a little bit more unique. So we are just going to copy this A sharp 1 octave lower as well, just so we have a little bit more tension down here. Yeah, that's more of the vibe we're going for. Now to really get that dark vibe, you guys probably already know this, but you pretty much want to focus on these half steps that are right next to each other. So that pretty much means just focus on these semitones that are right next to each other over here. So to make this chord a little bit more interesting, we're just going to cut one note over here, and then we can probably just shorten it over here and copy a cool little pattern. Now we just want to copy this over, but we still want to switch it up a little bit on this part. So for this part, I'm just going to cut this note up a little bit so we can have a more repetitive type of pattern, but I'm going to pitch this last note down to this G sharp. We can do some cool little adjustments over here as well, so we can pitch this down to this F. Let's try to lower these ones to the G sharp as well, but I don't really like how this note is right next to these ones with the space in between. So I think we can actually shorten this one a little bit, maybe do a cut over here, and then let's actually try to pitch this up by 1 octave. So that right there is a super simple pattern, but it still has this tension you would usually hear from Metro Boomin. Now lastly, we're just going to copy this over again, but this time we want a slight switch up at the end over here. So I'm actually just going to delete this note and probably extend them a little bit. And then I also think we can actually try to pitch this up by 1 octave and see how that sounds. That right there is pretty much perfect. As you can hear, the pattern is pretty repetitive, but it still has those slight changes, so it's not the same all the way through. Now for the effects, we're just going to start off by adding some Roam. This is simply just a reverb, so not too much. Then we're also just adding some RC20. This is going to give it that kind of greedy vibe. Lastly, just some EQ to cut out some of the frequencies we don't really want. So that right there is the main piano melody, but now we need to add some more layers so we can widen out the sound a little bit. So for the second sound, I'm just going to open up Mellotron 5 over here, and I'm going to see if I can find a nice sounding organ which we can layer the piano with. Yeah, this organ is super dark and greedy. If we add some effects to this later, it can really enhance the way the piano sounds. And now we're just going to copy this over, but we're going to delete the top note. Maybe we can shorten this over here and try to pitch this up by 1 octave. Yeah, we definitely need to add some EQ to that organ, just so it's not too harsh. Yeah, this is kind of hard. Yeah, this organ's kind of low-key in the background, but it definitely enhances the piano, like we said. Now again, I'm going to open up Mellotron 5, but this time we want to add some strings for some sort of counter melody. So I think these chamber strings over here work perfectly. Yeah, that right there is hard, bro. So as you can see, the pattern for the strings is super simple. You pretty much just want to follow some of the notes you've already used from the piano, and keep in mind these notes that are right next to each other, like I said earlier. They really give this tension and dark vibe to the sample. So as you can see, we are using this A sharp right next to this B, and over here we are going back and forth from the A and the B. Let's just pan this string from left to right. Yeah, I like when it's pitched up too. Actually, let's try to pitch down the whole sample a little bit as well. Yeah, this is nice right here. It's just pitched down to C sharp. Now, to give the sample a little bit of that horror movie type of vibe, I just opened up this drip bank in Arcade, and I pretty much just added this sound over here. So it kind of has this build up in the background. That's pretty much it for the sample. The last thing I'm going to do is just go to my Imperial one-shot kit, and I'm literally just going to add a pretty dark texture which we can have in the background, just to really finish off the sample with some atmosphere. Alright, so I have just rendered out the sample right here, but now I think it's time for some drums. As for all the drum sounds I'm using, they are actually all coming from my new Euphoria bundle kit. This kit right here is actually coming out on the 27th of February 2023. So if you are watching this a little bit early, this kit is actually not out yet, but just think of it as a little bit of a teaser of what's to come. Now this kit is actually super insane. So it has my new drum kit with new drum sounds that I'm using in every single one of my beats. And you also get a sample pack with royalty-free samples. And with that, you also get a MIDI kit, which includes hi-hat MIDIs and 808 MIDIs. And even on top of that, I'm including my own theme, which I'm using in this video right here, and also my FL Studio template. So if you guys like the sounds you hear, make sure you go check it out. It's of course linked down below. Just want to get this standard bounce going right here. It's a clap and a snare together. Now, I think Metro Boomin is pretty much notoriously known for having super simple but bouncy hi-hats. So I'm just going to have a normal two-step, but I'm going to lower the velocity a little bit on this second one. Then we just want to copy this over for the whole pattern. And now literally all you want to do is just add some small rolls here and there just to give it a little bit of that groove. So I'm going to go over here and pick third step. Then we can just make a small little triplet over here. Make sure the velocity is turning down a little bit. Literally something super simple like this. You can still hear the bounce. Let's give it some more bounce with these rims. Just gonna turn the velocity down on this second one. Now let's add the 808. Something like this could work. Now I'm going to show you guys a cool way that Metro Boomin really gets the bounce on the drums. So he doesn't always layer the kick perfectly with the 808. He actually has the kick hit a little bit before or after the 808 sometimes. This is really going to give the 808 and the kick a unique bounce together. You can hear how the kick is before the 808 right there. That's fire. So I'm quickly just going to arrange this one, and then I'll show you guys the final beat. So this right here is the final beat. As you can see, we have the piano and the movie type of sound in the background.
Shut up, Marko. Marko.
Then it drops in. Chop these ones up a little bit. We have the string. Then it just drops down. Really has this gritty vibe, bro. This is fire. Second part of the verse right here. Pretty much just drops back down to the intro. And it just slowly builds up to the hook again.